Next question. Kaylee asks, astrology isn't real. Psych. How do you handle skeptics? She actually has two questions, and I might come back to that second one. But I do like this question of, how do I handle skeptics? So there's a lot of ways I could take this. Number one, oh gosh, I have a lot of thoughts on this. Number one, there's a whole like sex thing to talk about here, because a lot of women are really into astrology, and a lot of guys like to pressure women to be like, oh, it's not real, blah, blah, blah. So if it's like a woman and a guy's just giving you a hard time, like, just don't feed into it. Because guys are going to do that and give you a hard time and shit like that. So if it's like a skeptic that's just like, you know, doesn't believe you because like you're a woman, like, then the guy just sucks. I don't know what to tell you about that. Well, I do, but we'll get to that in a minute. I think the second thing though is, if you have to look at their intentions. If someone is like legitimately trying to ask you like, hey, like, I don't believe in, or they're trying to talk to you like, I don't believe in astrology, these are my reasons, then you should back your shit up. And we're going to get to that. But a lot of people who are skeptics just want to get you angry. They don't actually give a fuck. And these people are so arrogant that they're not, they'll say, especially atheists, they think they're the most open-minded people in the world, and they're literally the most disconnected. It's so annoying. And so if it's someone just like, you believe in astrology, it's not real. Number one, you could just disregard it in that sense, and you shouldn't take it that seriously. So like, don't be like, you don't need to like come to the first defense of it and get all like worked up, because then it also shows that you're weak. However, if you do want to deal with skeptics, and again, I think this is a big a sex thing, because like for me, when I tell people I believe in astrology, I do astrology, some people kind of laugh, but most of the time it comes up because I do it for a living, and people kind of get like, they look at me and I don't look like a guy that would like be doing astrology, let alone making a living from it. So they're a little bit more of like, if they're skeptical, my appearance and presence in general kind of gives them like, well, like, because I'm not like, I wouldn't be able to pay my bills if this shit didn't work. You know, it's something like, most of my clients are return clients. There's no like, so you have, so there's that thing, right? Versus like, if you're just like a girl who looks like you fuck with crystals, and like if you look like that, then people are going to give you a harder time, versus straight up like people judge you off of appearances, and they matter. And I think women have a way bigger uphill battle than like men. And I think, you know, especially too, I've seen guys change their tune like with a group of girls about astrology, and then like I start talking about it and they're like, whoa, wait, what? And so it's a whole sex thing. But the other thing is, I really believe that, so how I handle skeptics is, one, I do this for a living, and I see astrology work in people's lives every day. Every day, I am confirmed that this is real in real people's lives, in their stories. And so I am so deeply embedded into my belief of astrology, because I legitimately see it work every day. It's my job to literally figure it out, that when I do talk to skeptics, I have such a plethora of information to throw at them that I know how to battle. I'm also a Mars and Gemini on the descendant. Like, I love debating people about this stuff. And how I handle it is, one, I believe in it. If you practice this, and I talk about, this is my first episode of the delineation, I talk about, on my first episode of the delineation, I talk about defend astrology. This comes back up to this. Because if you believe in astrology and you can't defend it, you can't explain why you do it, or maybe why it works, like, think about that for a minute. I don't think you need to. Like, I'm not saying like you need to be able to, but I think it's like, why can't you tell someone why you believe in what you believe in? It's not that it's not real. I mean, look at the fucking religions out there, and they could explain to you what's going on. Why I bring this up is, I think if you want to handle skeptics, you need to know your shit. And knowing your shit is just, whether it's reading books or just talking to people. And what does knowing your shit even mean? knowing, more than just the fact that it works. Like, study this stuff, guys. Like, learn about it, understand a little bit more, arm yourself with knowledge. And I've talked about this before, this YouTube train of just being able to YouTube any guide of how-to video you want and learn how to do anything for free. It's not going to last long. So educate yourself and arm yourself with education before they take that away from you, because that's what they want to do. Educate yourself with this stuff so you're well versed in it and you're articulate. You're not dumb. No, astrology is not hard. I really get frustrated. Like, astrology is really hard. They figured this out thousands of years ago with no computers, with not a lot. You can figure this out. You are a smart person. And so with that being said, when you arm yourself with the knowledge, this is how I handle skeptics. So the number one skeptic question you get is, or the statement is, they go, the planets can't affect us down here. You think they go, the stars can't affect us. Okay, astrology has almost nothing to do with the stars. Next question. It has more to do with the planets and the cycles. And then they go, well, the planets and the gravity don't affect us. We're just now starting to actually measure gravitational waves. We don't actually know literally anything about gravity at all. My question, I always throw stuff back at them, because the way I look at it is they throw straw man after straw man after straw man. So what I've done is I've taken my time out and I've developed a lot of straw man arguments against them. For example, I always try to put it in this perspective. Jupiter's gravity is so strong that it shoots out asteroids that come into our solar system that could hit Earth. It literally wraps them into its gravity and shoots them out the other side. Jupiter's gravity is so strong that it literally protects Earth from being attacked, or I don't want to say attacked, but being hit by asteroids. Also, Jupiter's gravity is so strong that Mercury, and I had the article, I had a source to this. I cannot find the source, but this is real. I got to look. I need to take my time to look for this again. But Mercury is is the closest planet to the sun, and the sun has very strong gravity, right? So Mercury is like locked into it. Jupiter's gravity is so strong that it literally pulls at Mercury, and Mercury's surface is actually technically molten because of Jupiter's gravity. So let's think about this for a moment. If we really think that planet up there that is so powerful that it can take a planet farther away than we are and mess with the surface of it, what is that doing to... I always put it in this perspective. If Jupiter were to get knocked off course just a little bit, let's say 10 miles, it got shifted than its normal orbit, do you not think that would have huge implications to how our solar system functions and how Earth's orbit is affected? What if that made Earth's orbit slower and a year actually took 370 days? Then time is completely different. What does that mean? And we all know that time is relative and that it's literally about locationality. So if time is different, that means our physical nature is different. What is the fucking difference? So number one, someone made a comment of also astrology is considered to work more from synchronicity rather than causality or gravity. Yeah, we could do the synchronicity argument all day. And I think that's one argument, but that people don't care about synchronicity. Skeptics don't care about synchronicities. They want to know about material science. So it's not necessarily about being like, let me prove it, but it's about asking the right questions. And the question is like, okay, if the planets don't affect us, then why this? Why that? And if something were to change, would you think you would see an effect? And I truly believe we would see an effect. So like, yeah, this is an environment. This is it's one of those things of if you had a lake in the middle of a forest that had never been touched by human lives before, and then one day for millions of years, and there was this whole ecology in this lake that had never been touched, and then a human goes in and touches it, and its microbiology goes into this water and completely changes that forever. Like that's kind of like where I'm at with a lot of this stuff. So then the other thing is, so that's one argument. That's how I handle skeptics of like, hey, you're just literally not open-minded and you just think you know everything. And they think astrology is just an easy target. Then I love to throw this at them. They love to say astrology is not a science. What is science? Let's go over it. In fact, let me Google it real quick. What is science? Watch it be like just Dr. Fauci. The intellectual and practical activity encompassing the systematic study of the structure and behavior of the physical and natural world through observation and experiment. That's the definition that when you Google it. Okay. So a science has to be hypothesized and tested. All of those books right here, hold on. We want this book, we want this book, we want this book, and we want this book. You see these books? You see these books? I'm going to show you guys something. This is Ptolemy. This is a very controversial book in the astrology world, but Ptolemy is the reason why people like Neil deGrasse Tyson have a career. This is the guy that measured the circumference of the earth within like 1,000 miles based off shadows. This guy was around in 100 to 178 AD. So then we have someone like Abu Mashar. Now, or before we actually get to Abu Mashar, let's actually get to Dorotheus. So then we have something like Dorotheus, which Dorotheus is, if I remember right, is one of the oldest books on astrology that we have. And I believe, I'm probably going to get this wrong. I believe it does, what's the timing here? 1st century AD, yeah. So this is around the same time, maybe a little bit before Ptolemy. But Dorotheus, this guy, different areas in life. Abu Mashar, this is someone who got information from this guy from hundreds of years earlier and from this guy hundreds of years earlier. They took their hypotheses and their data and then they applied it. And then you know what they did? They said, these are the things that worked and these are the things that didn't work. And then this guy, William Lilly, took what this dude and this guy and this dude and all these others said, and then he ran his own tests, and then he wrote them down. And that's what a science is, folks, is you have a hypothesis, you test it, you see what works, you didn't, you write it down, and then you have other people that try to replicate the scenario. That's what a science is. And in fact, I would argue astrology is one of the most is an actual fucking science, unlike what a lot of people think is an actual fucking science. And I would say that this is the most ancient of sciences because, like, do you know, this is between William Lilly and Dorotheus is 2,000 years of data, 2,000 years of practicing astrology. And we have it written down in fucking Arabic, in Latin, in Greek, in fucking name the language. They got a fucking astrology book in it. And you want to tell me it's not a science? People don't fucking realize that astrology is a science. They just think it's fucking because, and a lot of it comes from sexism straight up. And also too homophobia, because now it's like the gays pretty much resurrected astrology from the dead. And it's associated with gay culture and woke shit. And so like people don't believe it's a science because they just think of horoscopes. Like sun sign horoscopes didn't even start being a thing until like I believe it was like the 20s or 30s. And they were like for women. And it was like this way to just sell newspapers. So when people say like it is a science, like, and this spans across, you know, we have people that practice astrology in India, in the Middle East, in Europe, in America. And then they have different versions of it in South America and in Mexico and in their traditions. And I'm sure all native, and also too, a whole nother argument is like, yeah, pretty much all religious structure comes from some type of astrology. And then also farming, and then also time, like Monday, like the days of the week are named after the planets. A popular way of keeping time was through the astrology transits because clocks weren't a thing for like thousands of years, and not everyone had like a sundial on deck. But anyway, so when people say like, oh, astrology is not a science, it's a science. It really is. People just deny that though, because the church literally persecuted astrologers and witches and went through all of Europe and said, if you do this, we're going to kill you. And so now it's just got this bad taste. And then also too, there's a lot of like studies that have been done that have been like contorted to like to make astrology not look good. But this is a fucking science, guys. And I would debate any Neil deGrasse Tyson, Bill Nye ass motherfucker that it is. Because again, they don't have anything like this. In fact, I think the astrophysicists that love to and NASA people that love to shit on astrology literally are standing on the shoulders of giants, because it's people like Ptolemy who wrote this shit down is the whole fucking reason they have a job. And it's people like these people who consulted the stars for the kings and for the hierarchy to actually get us people looking at the space and questioning why. Then don't even get me started about the Renaissance and all of those great astronomers. And yes, a lot of astronomers were also astrologers. And then there's people that didn't believe in the side of it, which that's fine, but it's a science. I also think it's a religion because, again, I mean, for a lot of reasons, but this is like, my predictions aren't because God told me. My predictions are because I come up with a fucking mathematical, I come up with a conclusion based off math, based off history, based off of the past. If you've done a reading with me, you know that I like, especially if you're in your 30s or 40s, we talk about your past and I use past experiences to predict the future. Pretty fucking scientific. So if you want to know how I handle skeptics, I give them that speech, because it's really frustrating that people think that this isn't like, if you don't want to agree with it, that's fine. And you don't want to give a fuck about it, that's fine. When people are like, oh, this isn't a science and it's make believe, they're wrong. They have zero understanding of any of the history behind it. And astrology is such a, and again, if people are allowed to be like, oh, we can't, I think it's insane that people assume the authority to deny or accept astrology is real or not, but then with other questions like, well, we should leave it to the experts to figure out that one. Well, you seem to be an expert about the history of astronomy, but we can't be an expert about other things. It's just one of those things where people love to be like, oh, well, I'm not an expert, so I can't have an opinion on one thing, but then they love to be an expert and have an opinion on another. Like, choose one or the other. And I think if they're the people that love to be like, oh, we have to let the experts decide, it's like, okay, well, then you're not allowed to have an opinion. Stop talking. But if you just, because you're a human being and you have opinions, you're totally allowed to share them. And if you accept that part of yourself and you still say that this isn't a science or whatever, I think you're allowed to have that opinion. But also, I think a lot of it is you're just not familiar with what this is, and that's okay. But it's our job as astrologers or astrology enthusiasts to get educated on this stuff so we can combat this stuff. Because at the minimum, I'm over the whole astrology is bullshit thing. Like, I really am. I would love for people to just kind of like, not necessarily, I would love if people just leave it alone, but it's one of those things where, like, I think that you can make an argument about like crystals, or not that I believe that, or a lot of other things, but like, man, astrology is really like, I mean, it's the divination of measuring. Like, we're just measuring distances and we're divining meaning from that. And it's just not that crazy. So astrology is very real. I think the other thing that I do too, another way I handle skeptics, I just read their chart. So I get skeptic readings all the time. I shouldn't say all the time, but every now and then I get like a wife that buys her husband a consultation, and like there's a lot of programming around the acceptance of this. And he's like, not everyone's like this, but there's like this, this is gay type shit. But like, let's say you're an astrologer and you want to do a reading and you're dealing with someone who feels skeptical, like they don't believe you initially. Don't listen to them and just read the chart. Do you know how many people I've turned into believers just reading their chart? They're like, oh, blah, 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 that's not real. And then I'm like, all right, you might, and you don't have to tell me anything. I'm just going to read your chart for what it says. We'll go into the Time Lord. We'll go into the Ascendant Ruler. We'll talk about this or that. And I just trust what the chart says. Even if I look at this person and I look at their chart and I can't connect the two dots, I just trust what the chart says and I read it. And I have had one person actually say, this doesn't fit me. But it was the one person who was like, I read him like a fucking book, and it was a friend of mine and he didn't want to believe it. And that's my reasoning. I've pretty much, I don't think as long as I've had a correct birth time, because I've read people's charts that were incorrect, but they gave me a wrong time. So it was the wrong information. But as long as I have the right birth time, I could read a chart and, I could hit on things that will make people at least open-minded to it. Because I don't necessarily want to change. I don't need anyone to believe in astrology, but I need people to go, okay, like I'll leave that alone. Just like most even atheists agree that there's some type of, I don't even want to say higher power, but for example, or maybe agnostic is much more of a better opinion, but there's people that, may not believe in a God, but they believe that, we all have some type of psychic power of some sort. I need them to believe that the planets are doing